Long ago, in the red earth village of Ajadai, where the baobab trees whispered secrets to the moon, a beautiful girl named Amara was born. Her mother, Nina, was known for her laughter. It rang like a flute across the compound. And when she died from a snakebite by the river, the light in Amara's world dimmed. She was only 7 then. Her father, Okafor, who once carried Amara on his back during Harmattan, remarried within the year. He brought home a woman with sharp cheekbones and a voice that struck like a pestle. Her name was Ifioma, and her smile never reached her eyes. She had a daughter of her own, Chinyu, plump and loud and always demanding sugar in her porridge. Life changed. Suddenly, Amara was no longer a child but a shadow sweeping the compound before dawn, fetching water from the far stream even when her legs trembled, eating last, and always sleeping by the hearth on a raffia mat that stank of smoke. Chinyu wore bright wrappers. Amara wore what was torn. Chinyu walked with anklets that chimed. Amara walked silently, like someone apologizing for existing. When the village dance came, Amara stayed home to pound yam. When palm oil was scarce, she was blamed for it. If she smiled, Mama Ifioma would say, "What are you smiling at, eh? Does Ash have joy?" Every full moon, she would slip behind the baobab tree, near the edge of the village, and speak softly into the wind, as if someone listened. "If you can hear me, I'm still here. I haven't turned to stone." By the time Amara turned 18, the kitchen smoke knew her name better than her own father did. Okafor had become a quiet man. Or maybe he just forgot how to look at his daughter after Nina's death. He sat each evening on his carved stool, sipping palm wine while Mama Ifioma ruled the household like a market hawk. She controlled the food, the cloth, the chores. And Amara, "Don't stand there like a tree stump. Go and wash the cassava leaves." She barked, slapping a pestle into Amara's hands. Every day was a list of commands. Wash Chinyu's wrapper. Scrub the courtyard. Sort beans. Cook. Wash again. Her palms grew rough like yam peel. Her knees, dark and calloused from kneeling beside firewood. But she didn't cry, not where anyone could hear. Only when she squatted behind the cooking hut, her fingers tracing circles in the dust, did her shoulders shake. And still, she rose and did what was asked of her. She had no choice. A girl with no mother had no shield. "Chinyu needs a new pair of slippers," Mama Ifioma would say, loud enough for everyone at the village square to hear. But what has Amara done to bring us honor? Nothing. Just sits there, daydreaming like she's waiting for a prince. Even the other women began to whisper. "That girl's beauty is wasting," they said. "Look at those eyes, like palm oil on still water." But beauty meant little when your name was rarely called with kindness. Then one market day, a stranger arrived. He was tall, with sun-darkened skin and broad shoulders. His wrapper was faded, his sandals dusty. No one paid him much mind at first. He asked simple questions at the palm oil stall, bought dried fish without haggling, and smiled at the old women like he had nowhere to be. But the way his eyes moved caught Amara's attention as she balanced a basket on her head across the square. He saw her too, just for a moment. Then he turned away. She didn't know his name. By the time the Harmattan winds began to sting cheeks and crack lips, Amara had grown used to fading into the background, like a broom leaning against a wall. But the stranger with the dusty sandals kept returning to the market, to the stream, to the square, and his eyes always seemed to pause where she stood. He never said too much, just nods, small greetings, sometimes a passing comment about the weather or how slowly the cassava was drying this season. And Amara, though cautious, found herself listening longer than she meant to. She learned his name from one of the fish women at the market. "Madhu," the woman had said, scrubbing scales off her table. "That one comes from nowhere, going nowhere. Doesn't even own a goat. But quiet, good with his hands. Madhu." Amara rolled the name over in her mind like a secret. She didn't tell anyone, not even when he started leaving little things near the firewood pile. A ripe mango, a string of beads made from shells, a perfectly smooth stone shaped like a heart. But Mama Ifioma was not blind. One evening, she burst into laughter so sharp it startled even the goats. "You," she called to Amara, who was pounding yam with sore arms. "You finally caught one, eh? And look at the type. A poor laborer. May the gods be praised. You will go with him, quickly, before he changes his mind." Amara's pounding slowed. "I don't even know if." "Don't talk like you have options," Mama Ifioma snapped. You think a chief's son is coming to this house to ask for you? You, with no mother, no possession worth speaking of? Huh. Be grateful someone even looks at your dry feet. She said it loud enough for Chinyu to giggle and for Okafor to grunt his approval through his cup of palm wine. By the next morning, Mama Ifioma had already begun asking questions in the market about Madu's people, his hunt, if he had debts, if he drank. She was satisfied with what she found out. Perfect, she told Chinyu with glee. Let her go and struggle in peace. That one was born for suffering. Amara didn't cry. Not when the date was set. Not when she heard the price Mama Ifioma had agreed to. A goat with a limp. A sack of yam, and a calabash of oil. But inside, something hardened. She had never been wanted. Now, she was being thrown away like scraps after a feast. The wedding came quickly. Too quickly for Amara to prepare her heart. But just in time for Mama Ifioma's satisfaction. It was not a grand affair. No talking drums, no dancers, no line of guests bearing gifts. Just a handful of elders, the bride in borrowed wrappers, and the groom with bare feet and steady hands. He looks like someone's farm help. Chinyu whispered, loud enough for Amara to hear. Perfect match. Amara said nothing. She sat still beside the fire, her legs folded, eyes lowered as Mama Ifioma tugged at her hair, brushing it roughly into a coil. No need for fancy beads, she muttered. A poor man's wife doesn't need to shine. Just make yourself look like a good bargain. Even Okafor, half drunk on fresh palm wine, managed a crooked smile. You're leaving this house, girl, he grunted. That's something. Something. Yes. Like a cow being sold at the evening market before the rain. The bride price had been accepted without argument. A scrawny goat that limped when it walked. A basket of dried fish. Yams so small Mama Ifioma had scoffed, but still said yes. Because the true price wasn't the food or the oil. It was watching Amara walk away with no fanfare, no blessings. The village women came with speculations anyway, mostly out of habit, and the few who cared whispered things behind their hands. She looks too calm. Maybe she's happy to leave that house. No one knew what Madu felt. He didn't speak much. He just stood straight, bowing to the elders, thanking Okafor with a respectful nod, and reaching for Amara's hand with care. And for a moment, Amara looked up. Their eyes met. He smiled, and something in her chest moved, small, like a trapped bird testing its wings. Then, with her bundle wrapped in faded cloth, Amara stepped across the threshold. No tears, no backward glance, just silence, as Mama Ifioma closed the door like it was finally rid of bad luck. The walk to Madu's home was quiet, through a winding path no one used. He said nothing until they reached a small compound with one hut, a cooking stone, and a small garden of ugu leaves. I know this is not what you deserved, he said softly. She turned to him, unsure of what to say. But I will never raise my hand to you. You will eat first in this house. You will rest when you are tired. I have nothing, but I will not shame you. Amara blinked. She felt something like warmth blooming beneath her ribs. Amara woke before the cock crowed, startled by the silence of her new home. No Chinyu snoring beside her. No Mama Ifioma banging pots and barking orders. Just the soft hush of dawn and the even breath of Madu. Already outside, tending something in the dark. She sat up slowly, the mat beneath her thinner than she was used to. The air surprisingly gentle. A clay pot sat by the wall, filled with clean water. Her wrapper, folded neatly, had not been touched. For the first time in her life, she had a space that was hers. Small, yes. Humble, but not heavy with insult. When she stepped outside, Madu was by the garden, crouched low, whispering to the earth like it could answer him. You're awake, he said without turning. Amara nodded, not trusting her voice. He stood and wiped his hands on his wrapper. I'll fetch wood. There's maize flour if you want to cook. Or I can do it when I return. I'll cook, she said. He smiled, just a small curl of his lip, and walked off. Days passed like that. Quiet. Predictable. Madu worked the land. Helped at the market, carved small stools and spoons to sell when harvest was lean. He never shouted. Never barked commands. He offered things, like help, like space. And Amara, who had only known how to brace for cruelty, began to stretch into the peace. She learned his patterns, that he sang under his breath when washing, that he always saved the choicest piece of meat for her, that he fixed other people's fences without asking for payment. The villagers began to comment. You're blooming, one woman whispered as Amara bent to wash at the stream. That man of yours. Poor, but clean-hearted. Amara said nothing, but the words clung to her like perfume. Mama Ifioma had expected her to suffer. Chinyu had laughed at the thought of Amara living like a beggar's wife. But there was dignity in this compound. There was room to breathe. And every evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountain, Madhu would hand her a calabash of cool water and sit beside her without speaking, like someone who understood silence. Amara began to sleep with both eyes closed. She still wasn't sure if it was happiness, but it was something close, and that was more than she'd ever had. By the third month, Amara had stopped counting the days since she left her father's house. The calendar of pain had faded into something softer. Madhu's compound was still modest. Nothing had changed in its size or possessions, but the weight on her shoulders had eased. She now moved with quiet assurance, fetching water before Madhu asked, stirring the soup just the way he liked it, tucking the mats in place with a rhythm that felt like belonging. But outside their gate, tongues began to wag. Did you hear? That poor man, Madhu, he's never begged for anything. Maybe he has a hidden charm. The way he walks through the market, like someone with no fear. Some said he had helped the chief's son once. No one knew where he came from, truly. Only that he had arrived one day, quiet and respectful, and built his life without noise. Amara, curious but cautious, asked him once, "Where did you live before this village?" Madhu shrugged, gently turning the yam in the fire. "Far, in a place where the air is colder and the words sharper. But I prefer this. The people speak with their eyes here." It wasn't an answer, but Amara didn't press. He had given her peace, and that was more than most gifts. One morning, at the stream, Chinyu appeared, arms crossed, smirk sharp as ever. "So this is the life you chose, bathing in the same water as goats." Amara didn't rise to the bait. "It's clean water." Chinyu narrowed her eyes. "You look fatter. Almost like you're happy." Amara turned back to scrubbing. "Maybe I am." Chinyu scoffed. "Don't get comfortable. Poor men love hard, but suffer harder. One day you'll see what it means to be a beggar's wife." But Amara only smiled, faintly. "Then I'll suffer with someone who respects me." It was the season when the rain came softly, and the yam tendrils began to stretch toward the sky. That morning, Amara had gone to the farm early, her feet bare against the cool earth. She hummed a song her mother once sang, something about a bird that found freedom in silence. By midday, 3 strangers arrived at the edge of the village. They wore long robes made of thick woven cloth, with walking staffs carved from Irako wood. Their feet were clean, too clean for travelers, and their voices carried the calm weight of men used to being obeyed. They did not greet the chief. They did not go to the shrine. They walked past the market women and the young palm wine drinkers and went straight to Madhu's compound. The village stirred. Chickens flapped. Children pointed. Old men whispered. Amara was sweeping when she saw them approach. She froze, the broom falling from her hand. Madhu stepped out of the small hut, his wrapper tied simply as always. No beads on his neck, no rings on his fingers. But the tallest of the strangers stepped forward and bent slightly, in a greeting fit for a king. "My lord," the man said, "we have found you." Amara blinked. "Lord, I am not lost," Madhu said calmly. The men smiled, but their eyes held urgency. "Your lands await. The compound in the hills grows silent without you. The council sends us. Too long you have hidden beneath these thatched roofs." Amara's breath caught. When the men left, Madhu turned to her. "You heard?" She nodded. "You were a prince," she whispered. He shook his head. "I am still that man. I only laid down the weight of titles to find peace. They knew me as a ruler. But you know me as a man." Amara sank to her knees, her hands trembling. "Why marry me then? Why hide?" "Because only someone who sees beyond wrappers and names can sit beside a man when all his robes are gone, and in the quiet of the setting sun." As the village murmured with new rumors, Amara finally understood. Word spread like harmattan wind. The strangers came for Madhu. They called him a prince. They say he is a prince from the far hills, the son of a great chief who vanished many planting seasons ago. The market women could not keep quiet. The palm wine tappers whispered over their gourds. Even the old hunter by the stream blinked slowly and said, "I always knew his silence was too deep for an ordinary man." Amara said nothing. She still swept the compound. still rose before the cock crowed, still prepared his meals over the fire. But inside her heart was filled with wonder. That night, Madhu sat with her under the moonlight, the stars peeking through the branches of the old baobab. I must return, he said. Amara looked at him, eyes wide. And me? He smiled. You are my wife. My choice. You will walk beside me as you do now. But your people, won't they look down on me? I have no fine name, no beads, no silks. You have dignity. You have truth in your eyes. The kind of truth even chiefs cannot buy. Amara swallowed hard. I was the girl they threw away, the one they sent off to live in hunger. And now you will ride in glory, he said softly, not because of what they see, but because of who you are. So, when the sun rose the next day, the villagers gathered at the path. Some came to gloat, others in shame. Chinyu stood near the back, her mouth sour with disbelief. But Amara wore a simple wrapper, her head held high, walking beside Madhu as a horse was brought forth, not for him alone, but for them both. As they mounted and began the long journey to his homeland, a wind rustled through the trees. The baobab leaves whispered like old grandmothers telling stories. And years later, in that far-off land where rivers curved like anklets around the hills, they still told the tale of the girl who married a poor man and found a prince. But the elders knew better. They said it was not she who found a prince. It was the prince who found a queen in the ashes.